And just like that, another Fortnite chapter has come to an end. These things go by too fast. 1 second we're fighting demons in Tokyo, and then you blink and now Jar Jar Binks is evil, and now there's bugs everywhere. This game is wild, dude. At the end of this chapter, I want to take a step back and look at everything that happened over the past year and give my thoughts on it. Let's look through everything that Fortnite Chapter 6 had to offer. The good, the bad, and the pickle. Now, some ground rules before we get too far into this. Bear with me, this will only take a minute or two. I want to make my biases clear before we start. I am a casual, zero-build keyboard and mouse player. In other words, I am absolute dog water at this game. So I'm not gonna be analyzing this game on a competitive level. I don't have the skill set for that. Instead, I'm gonna be looking at it at a casual level. I'm basically judging these seasons on how fun they were and not how balanced they were. Obviously, whatever is considered fun is subjective. So I just wanted to say, if you disagree with whatever I say here, you're wrong. Nah, I'm just kidding. Feel free to disagree with me on anything I say here. Just because I'm taking the time to make a video expressing my thoughts, it does not make my opinion special. Everyone has thoughts and feelings about this game, and this video is just about what I enjoyed, which will be different from what you enjoyed. So feel free to disagree with me on anything I say here. And lastly, I want to see how well this chapter stands on its own. I will be keeping comparisons to other chapters and other seasons to a minimum. As Theodore Roosevelt once said, comparison is the thief of joy. I could sit here and talk about how old Fortnite was better for this and that reason, but I just don't think that'd be interesting. The standards for Fortnite's design have changed so much over the years. It just doesn't feel right to compare old Fortnite to new Fortnite, even if they are the same game. I will be making comparisons here and there to help illustrate my points, but for the most part, I want to see how good Fortnite Chapter 6 is on its own. I do think keeping Fortnite's lineage in mind is important, but it shouldn't be the sole reason for judging if a season is good or not. And real quick, I just wanted to say a video like this takes a lot of time to make, so forgive me for asking this, but if you could at least consider using my creator code in the Fortnite item shop, it would help out the channel a lot. The code is CUZL2, and for the next 2 weeks, anything you buy in the shop gives me a small kickback. It helps out a lot. We all good? We all on the same page? Okay, now the video can start for real. There is a lot to explore here, and it all starts with an absolute beast of a season. Chapter 6, Season 1, Oni Hunters. That's Japanese for demon. The last chapter ended with a bizarre fever dream of a concert, which then sent us to a brand new island. Somehow. There's a lot of ground to cover at the start of a chapter. New characters, a bunch of new mechanics, and a lot of lore that I pretend to understand. But let's keep things simple and talk about the new map. The biggest defining feature of this place is this mountain range that basically cuts the whole island in half. The bottom right has big open fields with some steep hills, and the top left of the map has a couple different types of forest. Green, purple, and swamp. Having this giant mountain range in the middle helps make the map more distinct. A lot of fights this season have verticality to them. Because the mountain range goes straight through the middle, the final circle is more likely to close in these areas, leading to a lot of late game fights battling over height differences. This sounds like a problem, and it can be, but there's still plenty of even terrain around the map, and even if the circle does end around high ground, there's plenty of ways to get around. Fights against high ground opponents don't feel insurmountable, like I could actually take some of these high ground fights. I'm probably still going to lose the fight, but at least I feel like I could have won. Overall, the map is really well put together. Like, really well put together. In fact, this might be ambitious of me to say, but I think this is one of the best islands Fortnite has ever had. There are so many interesting locations, all of them having such well thought out design and aesthetics that I can't help but gush about them. The way I see it, there are 2.5 factors that go into designing a location in a video game. The first one is visual design. That's how nice everything looks, with textures, lighting, and whatnot. The second factor is gameplay of an area. If you were to strip all the colors and textures off of a map and just have it be a bunch of gray boxes, would it still be fun to run around in? And the half factor is story and lore of an area. It is an important factor, but it's not as important as the other two. These 2.5 factors can help us determine how well a location is designed. A drop spot could look gorgeous, but be a little plain on the gameplay side. Or a spot could look really fun to play on, but look kinda bad. Or you could be like the Chapter 6 map and have every location be incredible. I cannot stress this enough. All the POIs this season are incredibly well made. This map looks so nice. It's like Fortnite heard everybody complain about last map being realistic and samey, and they were like, oh yeah? You think we can't make a beautiful map? I'll show you a beautiful map! And then they filled the island with incredible level design out of spite. Several locations still have that muted, realistic look to them, like Seaport City or Foxy Floodgate. But while keeping that Chapter 5 grounded look, they also made the map look more dynamic, because this time, they actually put color on the map. Purple trees in Night Shift Forest, bright reds in Shogun Solitude, and a little field of flowers just above Hopeful Heights. This isn't even a named location, they just put this here to look nice. There was so much effort put into making this map look vibrant and have areas that look distinct from each other. But not only do all the areas look distinct, they also feel distinct. Every POI has interesting terrain or some kind of gameplay aspect to help make each location stand out. Canyon Crossing is a town that is split up by a giant crevice, leading to interesting cross-town fights. There are these bridges to help you get across, but they don't provide too much cover. You could test your luck and run across these bridges, or you could try to sneak under the bridges in the crevice itself. The terrain helps make Canyon a more memorable location, and so many named locations have a twist like this. Whiffy Wharf is a dock town surrounded by water. Because all the walls and floors are made out of wood, they are very easy to break. You have to be cautious not to break too many of these or you'll be stuck in the water. Shogun Solitude is basically its own little mountain cut off from the rest of the island, having massive drops in elevation. You know what else is massive? The unnamed swamp area with a mix of shallow and deep water and these little lily pads to help you get around, and this tiny little plateau that gives you a small amount of height. It's all just... I love it so much. Every part of this map is just so well made. Flooded Frogs has this interesting inner elevation to it. Powered Pumps is a super open place with only one building, and Foxy Floodgate having an insane height difference to it in the direct center of the map. Not to mention all the little secrets like hidden stashes of loot that you can only access by solving riddles, or how there's a secret to make it daytime in Night Shift Forest. And also all the little robot guys you can find around the map in silly poses. It's just... this map is so incredibly well thought out. I am a sucker for good level design, and this map is just oozing good level design. Maybe oozing's not the right word. I need to stop talking about this map so much. Hey, they added more than just a new map this chapter. Did you know that? Movement also got a few changes. These are always fun to see. You can now scramble up walls, kick off of walls for some extra movement options, and if you're sprinting, you can also leap off of structures to get some extra height. These moves are cool and all, but my favorite thing they added was this little roll you can do. It's a really nice feature, letting you keep momentum from a jump in a very satisfying way. It would be such a shame if something were to happen to it. Now, just like the start of any chapter, there is a sea of new weapons and items to choose from. First off, I gotta mention these little sprites. I love these little guys. They have such cute little faces and they make funny noises when you hit them with a cart. There is the Wind Sprite and the Water Sprite. On their own, they don't really do much. The Wind Sprite can be used as a temporary geyser and launches you a good amount in the air, and the Water Sprite acts like a little mini walking shield keg. Throwing them down, you'll quickly gain 30 health and then slowly get 20 more. They're neat little guys, but their real value comes from when you sacrifice them. Around the map are these little sprite shrines, and if you have a little guy on you, you can give the little guy to the shrine for some loot and a free boon. The boons are just little upgrades you can get throughout the match. They're not that important, but they're still worth grabbing. Also, you get to keep the little guy after you use them in the shrine. You don't actually sacrifice them. They're fine, it's just funnier to say. And there's also the earth sprites around the map. These are stationary little guys that let you trade one weapon for another. The sprites are helpful and all, but what about the weapons themselves? The guns are the meat and potatoes of a season, so what do we have to choose from? First off, we have the Hollow Twister, and zooey mama, this gun can destroy people. It has a high damage output and a high accuracy with minimum bloom, leading to this being the main AR choice for most people. Part of what makes this gun so powerful was the return of hit scan. The Chapter 5 bullet drop shenanigans are now over, and we're back to how bullets used to work, which means that all the problems with hit scans are now back. Hooray! Sure, hit scan weapons are easier to hit people with, but they come with a trade-off of being able to hit people from an insane distance. Because you can now pretty much hit anyone you can see, combined with super high precision guns like the Hollow Twister, hitting people from long distances becomes so easy. There are times where it feels like I'm getting shot at by ants, because the enemies I'm fighting are so far away I can barely see them on screen. That's the main drawback of hit scan, but honestly, like I said in the last retrospective, I truly and deeply don't care which one is used, and I forgot what we were talking about. So yeah, the Hollow Twister's good. I give it 2 thumbs up and an RC Cola. The other AR available is the Furia Assault Rifle, and this thing shreds people. It doesn't have a scope, so it's not the best for long distance fights, but with a fire rate this high, it's still very much a viable gun. And somehow, the SMGs this season shoot even faster. The Surge Fire is interesting. It shoots faster the longer you shoot, but it has a drawback of being in the same loot pool as one of the strongest submachine guns Fortnite has ever had. The Veiled Precision SMG is a beast of a weapon. As you can tell by its name, it's a very precise weapon, being able to hit people from an insane distance. It doesn't do as much damage as an AR would, but the fact that you can still chip people from this far away is wild. And in close ranges, this thing is deadly, almost as deadly as shotguns, arguably the most important weapon type. There are 3 to choose from, the first one being the Oni shotgun. While this gun looks cool, it doesn't really do that much damage. It's one of those shotguns where it's only really useful for doing a lot of damage and then finishing the player with another weapon. Like the Surge Fire, it has its uses, but it's just outclassed by the other options. The Twin Fire Auto Shotgun has testicles. This is the only notable fact about the Twin Fire Auto Shotgun. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk about the Twin Fire Auto Shotgun. And then we have the Sentinel Pump. This one's good. It feels like your standard pump shotgun. It's a gun that's clearly made for build mode, and they also just put it in zero build for game synergy or whatever. That being said, the fire rate and damage output are really solid. Pump shotguns are normally hit or miss in zero build. They can be useful, but a weapon with a higher fire rate is normally better. But like I said, the fire rate on this thing was tolerable. Still a little slow, but worth it for the damage it could do. Out of all the shotgun options, the Sentinel Pump was my favorite, which isn't really saying much considering the other options. So that's the core loot pool. We'll be seeing these guns pop in and out from time to time throughout the whole chapter. And as important as the core is, what about season-specific weapons? What makes this season stand out from the others? Other than the most beautiful map we've ever had, we've got 2 funny masks. The first one being the Fire Oni mask, and it does a respectable amount of damage, which is 200 damage if you hit both shots. Did I say respectable amount? I meant a fuck ton. Yeah, these things are basically homing rockets with high structure damage, high player damage, and a really slow fire rate. You can only fire 2 of these things in quick succession, which can get a healthy player incredibly low, or at least deal a good chunk of damage before starting a fight. It sounds like an incredibly strong weapon, but there are some drawbacks to it. The homing attack really isn't that great. It just kind of slowly turns towards the opponent, which can be easily avoided. The mask also only has 8 charges, and you need to hit 2 masks to deal the full 200 damage. So you really need to pick and choose your battles with this thing. It's a useful tool, but the mask has a lot of downsides, while the Void mask has a lot more upsides. With this one, you can just straight up teleport. You just throw your little ender pearl and then right click to go to it. It's an insane movement item, basically letting you go anywhere for free. You do only get 15 uses out of a mask, so it's something you'll only really use every now and then. However, something really interesting you can do with the Void Mask is fake people out. When you shoot an Ender Pearl, it leaves behind a little portal showing where you're going to teleport to, and you can use this to mess with your opponent, splitting focus between where you're currently at and where you might go. The Void Only Mask can be really annoying to fight against, having your opponent just teleport away out of nowhere, but whenever Ring gets small enough, there's only so many places you can go, so it's not that big of a deal. And then we have the Typhoon Blade. Okay, look, this thing is too strong. It swings 7 times over 2 seconds, dealing 218 damage. That is more damage than a headshot pump, and all you had to do was press left click with this stupid sword. So not only does this thing do a crazy amount of damage really quickly, it's also a full-on mobility item. It makes you run faster and gives you a double jump, making it easy to close the distance, get into someone's face, and then just hold left click to win the fight. Wow, oh my god, so skillful. Why even bother carrying a shotgun when you can just throw your opponent in the blender? Not to mention the fact that this thing also has a knockback slash that can shove players to their deaths on certain parts of the map. This thing would almost guarantee you would win any close range fight. The sheer amount of people who are cowering behind the Typhoon Blade is absolutely insane. So often, people would just jump all over the place with the Typhoon Blade and just shred you faster than any shot could damage. It was absurd, but it had its counters. All of the blade's movement took away sprint, so you couldn't just run around forever, and you had to be in the other player's face to deal damage. So if you could see the other player coming, you could still shoot them. It's not like there was anything like too powerful in rotation that... No, not again, no! Medallions are back! Oh boy, my favorite! They're not actually my favorite. I fucking hate these things, dude. We only have 2 of these things to deal with this season, and they're still as bullshit as ever. The Nairo's Medallion just passively reloads your gun, making it so you don't even need to press reload. You just need to hold your gun and it will do it for you, even while you're shooting. Combine this with the mythic Veiled SMG you get for fighting the same boss as this medallion. All you need to do is feather your shots and you can shoot this thing forever. It's annoying, but nowhere near as bad as the Shogun X medallion. This one thing made this season so unbearable. First of all, the boss that holds this medallion spawns on this floating island. I didn't mention the island earlier because I hate that thing. This thing gives insane height over the entire map, so players up here can just shoot the players below with almost zero consequence. You can't even sneak up onto island because you have to glide up there, giving the team up on island plenty of warning so they can either fight back or bail before you can even do anything. And yeah, the boss fight up here is cool and all, but the reward for doing so is absolutely game-breaking. The Shogun X medallion gives you both brief invisibility while sprinting and infinite sprint. Hey, remember what I said about the Typhoon Blade, how its disadvantages were it consumes stamina and if you see a player coming you could just shoot them? This medallion fully negates both drawbacks, and for defeating the same boss that gives you this medallion, it gives you a free mythic Typhoon Blade. Not only do you have a more powerful version of the most overpowered weapon in the game, but now you can just run around with zero consequences, being hard to hit, hard to see, and deal an absurd amount of damage. How did anybody think this was a good idea? This is not even remotely balanced. I know I said I wasn't gonna talk about balance, and yeah, it can be fun to run around with overpowered items, but you gotta remember, you're not the only person playing the game. Fortnite is a competitive game. By nature, the game's balance is gonna affect how fun the game is. Balance and fun are 2 different qualities. A perfectly crafted and balanced experience can be boring, and an unbalanced, chaotic mess can be super fun. These 2 qualities are not the same thing, but they absolutely affect one another. The way I see it, a few strong items will tip the scales and make the game unbalanced, but a game can still be enjoyable. But when an item is a must carry and dominates a loot pool with no clear counters, it not only breaks the balance, it takes away from the fun. I don't want to use the best weapons in every game, and I don't want to fight against people using the best weapons in every game either. This is why I complain about overpowered items and medallions as much as I do. They are far too strong of an item, making every match be about getting the medallion or fighting the player that did. I'm just tired of it, dude. It legitimately feels like Medallions took a really incredible season and single-handedly turned it into a slog. It feels that way, but looking back at it, it really didn't. The Night Rose coin isn't really that powerful. It still consumes ammo, and you still have to feather your shots if you want to shoot continuously. And the Shogun X coin only spawns towards the end of a match, so you could still play a fairly normal game up until that point. I want there to be fun items in rotation, but I want them to be fair as well. I don't want to talk about medallions anymore, they give me a fucking headache. We're almost done with this season, just stick with me. This season also added the explosive rifle back to rotation. Why? This thing sucked. It does so little damage. Sure, it does explosive damage so you can hit around corners, and it does extra damage to cars, but not to players. It does 36 damage to players. Why use a rifle that only does 72 headshot damage when you can use a rifle that does this? Oh, ooh. Hell yeah.
Ooh.
Oh, the hunting rifle was so nice. It's the closest thing we got to a sniper all season. Now, hit scan is back for most guns, but for the hunting rifle, there's still a fairly significant amount of bullet drop. But you won't see me complain about that. You can't OCO from full health, which is a shame, and there's no scope, just this zoomed in over the shoulder view. But even with all that, it's just nice having a high-powered long-range weapon. That being said, it's technically not a sniper, so I can't legally say the season has a good loot pool. And that's pretty much it for the loot pool. Ignoring the Typhoon Blade, it's a pretty solid lineup of weapons. I just wish there was more interesting shotgun options. Okay, now, what's happening? Why are we here? What is the story of this season? Well, a shard of the 0 point landed on the island, awakening demons from the spirit realm, and Hope and Jonesy are looking for the shard with help from this guy named Kendo. Kendo's sister thinks it would be a good idea to go into the spirit realm for answers, but uh-oh, she's stuck. So we have to find a way to get her out of the portal. Mariah Carey! Winterfest this year was such a glow up from last year. Crackshot's cabin is back with the XP Yule log and daily presents. I'm pretty sure this is all identical from when it was last year from Chapter 4, but I can look past that, that's fine. Along with more snow added to the map, we got toggleable ice feet as an item you can use, letting you choose when you want to use them. We also got a fun snow grenade that basically did no damage. Nice. Unfortunately, Shibit Express did not make its return this year. That sucks, but this year's Winterfest had a weird celebrity theme to it. Not only did Mariah Carey get added, but Shaq and Snoop Dogg also got Christmas skins. Sure, why not? But not only were these celebrities added, we also had to help investigate who was on the naughty list. And it turns out—
What about Jade?
Huh?
Before you started talking about all this Christmas stuff, you were talking about Jade being trapped in the spirit realm, and that sounds a lot more important to the story.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I got distracted by stuff that doesn't matter. After all the Christmas stuff happened, Jade was still in the spirit realm. She's been stuck there for a few weeks now. We should probably find something to— Is that King Kong? King Kong brought railguns to the Fortnite island to help us fight against Godzilla. Not only is the big guy in Fortnite, but you can also play as him. It's basically like a communal boss fight. While you're controlling Godzilla, every other player will shoot you in a race to see who can do the most damage. It's an interesting concept, but the reward for doing so is what I want to talk about. It's a medallion. Not only is it another stupid medallion, it's an identical copy of the Cerberus medallion, the most infamously overpowered medallion Fortnite has ever had. I did not play much of this update. Like, I played a handful of rounds with my friends for a day or two, but when I learned the Cerberus medallion was back, all of my enthusiasm to play went out the window. Because of this, I really can't say whether or not the Godzilla update was good, because I really didn't play much of it. I only played like 8 or so matches this update before Godzilla got sent back to the Shadow Dimension. So I really can't give a nuanced opinion about this collab. Sorry about that. Hey, speaking of dimensions, we've still not seen Jade in a while, and I wonder how she's...
Hatsune Miku!
Everybody's favorite 16-year-old joins the Fortnite Festival headlines with 4 jam tracks, 2 skins, one of them based off of Bright Palmer, and a really nice festival. Why are we not saving Jade? She is still in the spirit realm, and we have been goofing off with Santa Claus and giant animals, and no one has done anything about Jade. Thankfully, Kendo has another sibling named Daigo, and he's had enough of this. While our main characters have been wandering in circles for the past 2 months, Daigo decided to take matters into his own hands and rescue Jade by himself. And in doing so, Daigo single-handedly became one of the most interesting characters in Fortnite history, actively going against the wishes of Hope, Jones, and Kendo, and he's not doing any of it to save the world or anything like that. He just wants to protect his sister, all of which combines into one giant fight between Daigo and Shogun X. Oh, I have several complaints, but I'm gonna talk about those later. That was really cool, and I don't want to ruin the moment. Man, I really like it when Battle Pass characters get, like, actual character development. The entire pass this season was really solid overall. We got 2 of the important sprite siblings, and Kendo is also there. Hope is back with a new style as a hoodie ninja that caught me off guard, Ninja Star. Now I'm injured. It's actually really cool to see Hope get more skin variants. Baymax. Night Rose is another character I didn't talk that much for simplicity's sake. She's another interesting character, but all you really need to know about her is that she's a demon, but also a good demon, if that makes any sense. The only character I've not mentioned yet is Nyanja, who is a cat with a robot hand, and I feel the need to mention this. If you go up to Nyanja's NPC on the map while wearing any of the buff male cat skins, he starts loudly complimenting them. Hey Fortnite, when I said I wanted another gay cat, this is not what I meant. But like, whatever, I'll take it. I won't say no to a cat skin. And that's pretty much everything from this season. It was really good. If you just ignore the Typhoon Blade, and the medallions, and how the collabs overshadowed a really interesting story, maybe the season wasn't actually that good. Okay, actually, never mind. I'm gonna move on. Hey, remember that portal that Daigo broke during the event? Yeah, well, now the mountain is spitting out an endless supply of gold, and where there's gold, there's money to be made. But as they say, one's for the money, and two's for the show. Make it loud, cause it's all that we know. Foot to the floor now, I'm out of control. When I move, you move. Everybody, let's go now! Run it up! Start up our rockets, y'all, let's turn it up! Fortnite Lawless, another heist-themed season. Sure, why not? Anyways, say hello to the most mediocre battle pass we've ever seen. These are not bad skins, not by a long shot, but just looking at the full lineup, nothing really jumps out. We got like a discount Batgirl, Nisha's distant cousin, John Fortress on HRT, and some masculine furry, because Fortnite doesn't have enough of those apparently. Even the new Midas skin feels somewhat lackluster. Cowboy Midas is a fun idea, but when you make his outfit all black with no other colors, it's just hard to point out any unique characteristics about this design. Again, these are not bad skins, but battle passes have just been so cookie cutter for so long, it's hard to get excited about a new batch of skins that are very similar to ones we've had before with less notable qualities. And out of all of these characters, a grand total of 2 of them are important to the story, Fletcher Kane and Midas. These two apparently have history together, and with the mountain now spitting out gold, Fletcher Kane is here to make money, while Midas is here to screw him over in an all-out heist war. What's that? You want to know about the 0-point fragment? Don't worry about that, here's a gun, go do a crime. Even though it's not the main focus, there are still whispers of last season's story for people who care, and not only that, but guess who's helping Fletcher Kane? That's right, it's Daigo! It's nice seeing Fortnite build up a Fortnite original character again. I guess he wasn't actually trapped in the spirit realm. Never mind, he just ran in. Now he's trapped, I think. I never know what's going on in this game, dude. I just pretend like I know what's happening. All you really need to know is that Midas is willing to help with the 0-point fragment shenanigans if we screw over Fletcher Kane. And I do want to mention another character here, and that's this guy. His name is Skillet. He's got a big stupid face, his whiskers have scorch marks, he's basically a Junkrat persona. He may have an ugly face, but it's an ugly face that I adore. Skillet shows so much personality, and he's even in most of the load screens from the Battle Pass. It makes me wonder if he was originally planned to be a Battle Pass character before being moved to the item shop for whatever reason. I don't know. This point really isn't going anywhere. I just wanted to talk about Skillet, that's all. He brings me joy. Can I talk about things that bring me joy for 2 seconds? Speaking of joy, the map design in Chapter 6 continues to be the best we've seen with this golden area. I really like how the clouds circle around specifically this part of the map, giving more emphasis to this area in particular. Everything here has this slight yellow tint to it. Yellowy grass, yellowy trees, and even a golden river. I will try to refrain from making piss jokes about it. It might be a little too much yellow, but all these yellow colors help make this area feel more distinct, and the named locations only add to that. Crime City has a lot in the way of detail, but it's one of the more bland POIs this season. Other than some funny signs and the fact that it's always raining, there's nothing too special about this place. It's just another compressed city area that the art team just decided to go hard on for some reason. Shiny Shaft, on the other hand, is the opposite. It's just a mining location. Nothing to write home about in terms of visual design, but it makes up for that in terms of gameplay. It has this open area in the middle around these two large buildings, kind of like a mini Canyon's Crossing, and it also has these grind rails to help you move around the space. I feel like this place doesn't get the attention that it deserves. It's a really nice place. Outlaw Oasis is also notable for just how open the whole place is. This location is made up of like 3 buildings all surrounding a hot spring. I can't even remember the last time a POI was this open. Maybe Frenzy Fields from Chapter 4, but still, that had a few big buildings around it, while Outlaw Oasis just has 1-story buildings and a few hot tubs. And lastly, there's Lavish Lair, Lone Wolf Lair. This is Fletcher Kane's base of operations where he eats children or something, I don't know. Hey, you wanna know a terrible place to put a mansion? Directly on the edge of a cliff. The drop on the back of this place gives it good height over the entire swamp area, and it also led to a core memory of mine that we'll talk about in detail later. All of the areas added this season are fairly well made. They don't quite hit that same level of detailed design as last season's locations, but most of those are still here anyways, so it's not that big of a deal, and again, a lot of the new locations are still pretty good. And they also added a new reason to land at locations. It can't be a heist season without a vault to break into. These are sprinkled throughout the map as a little challenge you can do for better gear. Just survive a few waves of enemies, deal with any players that try to ambush you, and you get some pretty good loot out of it. A few rare chests, a ton of gold, and some dill bits. Why are they called dill bits? I couldn't tell you. You can bring these to the black market for some really good items. Arguably, items that are too good. Vaults are a really nice focus point for POIs, giving more of a reason of going somewhere without it feeling like a mandatory drop. You can still buy plenty of items from the black market without dill bits, and you can also randomly get dill bits from the smash and grab stores. That's a terrible name for a jeweler. Locations this season are not as high tier as the last ones, but they're still enjoyable nonetheless. Okay, now before we talk about the items in rotation, I gotta ask, what are the medallions we're dealing with this time? After what happened last season, these things feel like they can make or break a season. And I don't want to get too invested if we're going to have more overpowered coins to deal with. Shogun X and his stupid island are still here, and they still drop a medallion that... Huh? Wait, they changed it. The Shogun X medallion is now completely different, dropping a shield bubble whenever you use a healing item. Okay, that's nowhere near as powerful as last season. There's only one other coin available this season being dropped by Fletcher Kane. It gives a movement speed boost similar to Nitro, but without the infinite sprint. That sounds fine. Guys, I think we have a good season on our hands. Without powerful medallions, it gives the loot pool a better chance to shine. And oh boy, do these things shine. Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, the Mammoth Pistol is back in rotation. One of my favorite Fortnite items is back in all of its glory. It is an incredibly powerful pistol that you have to load one bullet at a time. I love using this thing, even if I'm incredibly inconsistent with it. There's even a special Mammoth pistol you can pick up from Fletcher Kane that can carry more than one round in it. That is a limitless magazine size, if limitless means 2. And speaking of personal favorite items, this season also has a sniper in it. Hooray! I always enjoy using snipers in this game. It has that high risk, high reward feeling that no other... Why does it not one-shot? What do you mean it doesn't OCO? What do you mean that the sniper doesn't OCO? What's even the point? The last time Fortnite had a sniper that did not one-shot headshot people was back in Chapter 3, Season 3. Over 3 years ago. Every sniper since then has one-shot headshot people. Until now, apparently. Sure, it's more quote-unquote fair this way, but it's not as fun when you headshot someone and nothing happens from it. The craziest part being that this thing has bullet drop. You wanna know what doesn't? The Mammoth Pistol. The gun that also takes heavy ammo, does the same damage as a sniper, and is fully hit scan. Why would you even pick up the sniper when the Mammoth Pistol is just a better version of the same gun? The only thing that the Falcon Sniper has that the Mammoth Pistol doesn't is a scope, making it easier to hit long-range shots without going full ant shooting simulator. Other than that, the Mammoth Pistol is just better in every way, shape, form, and fashion. Man, we're 2 guns in and I'm already complaining. Look, I said this loophole shined, I didn't say it was perfect. Speaking of which, did you like the Hollow Twister from last season? What if we put in 2 guns that did the same thing? The Striker Burst is a scoped AR that shoots in bursts, and it's one of the few good things we got out of Absolute Doom. This thing is surprisingly good and gives the Hollow Twister a run for its money. And if that wasn't enough, they also brought back the Twin Mag from Chapter 4. While they're all slightly different in their own unique way, these 3 guns effectively do the same thing. A scoped AR is always the best, most optimal long-range weapon you can carry in a season, and there's now 3 of them to choose from. That's too many. I'm pretty sure this made the season feel way more like a sweat fest. Or I just played a lot of ranked this season, that could be why, I don't know. You're gonna need some cover if you want to avoid all that gunfire, and thankfully, Fortnite added in a new item just for that. Let me introduce you to the Porta Cover, a comically small wall you can throw down. I don't understand this thing, man. Bunkers are still in rotation, by the way. This doesn't replace them. This is just another item you can use to pretend that you're playing build mode. But I will give the Porta Cover credit, it can do this. That do anything for you? We got 2 new healing items. The gold splashes are just normal chug splashes that give you the gold rush effect. I've actually not talked about gold rush that much. It's just an effect that makes you run slightly faster and increases your pickaxe speed, and you can get this effect from the gold splashes I just mentioned, or by touching the totally not piss water. The other healing item is the Med Mist grenade. It's a smoke grenade that heals you. I know there used to be a smoke grenade in Fortnite like 15 years ago, but that one completely blinded you and you couldn't see anything. The Med Mist, on the other hand, lets you see in the mist, you just can't see out of it. It's a nice healing item, but it can also be used for cover in tight situations to obscure yourself from the enemy. I like it. It's a fun and weird, goofy kind of healing item. Speaking of goofy items, this season also added a lot of goofy weapons, which is the technical term for a non-standard weird weapon that Fortnite excels at. The first gaff we got was the Pump and Dump. This is a shotgun and SMG combined into one item. The shotgun is not the best, and neither is the SMG, but the beauty of this weapon is shooting them both at the same time, shredding people for a ton of damage, but usually not quite enough to kill. I'm fine with that though. The damage output is still decent, and the wrap for both the shotgun and the SMG pull from your respective shotgun and SMG wraps. That's cute. If you're curious why it's called the Pump and Dump, I couldn't tell you. The Plasma Burst Laser, a burst laser weapon. Sure, why not? This was mainly used to help open vaults faster, but you could also use it as a weapon. I basically use this thing like an SMG, dealing some okay close range damage, but you're never gonna kill using this thing alone. Speaking of opening vaults, we also got the rocket drill. You can shoot yourself into the air with this thing and also tear through builds, basically functioning like a rocket ram without the high impact. Don't worry, the rocket ram was added in a later update just to be funny. This thing was the second main mobility item of the season, helping players maneuver in and out of dangerous situations. It's useful, but nowhere near as good as the ultimate funny weapon from this season, the kneecapper. Oh, we're gonna go break some kneecaps with this one, boys. The kneecapper, or as it's more commonly known as, the bat, gave an increased movement speed while running, had an okay melee combo, and of course, a killer swing. Dude, this thing was so much fun. It was always satisfying running up to another player and then knocking them out of the park. It added some lighthearted goofiness to a match. I don't really see any downsides to... Got him low. Why can you spam it? Why can you spam it? Okay, enough glazing this thing. Let's talk about everything I hate about this stupid bat. The knockback was funny for a while, but it's a joke that got old very quickly. Because you can just knock the last player into Storm, final circles always came down to who had a bat and who didn't. Every single time. And if you were in an enclosed space, you could just spam swings, disorienting the other player, messing with their aim, and annoying the hell out of them. The bat had 3 charges, a small swing, a medium swing, and a big swing. Why? One big swing is all this thing needed. The smaller swings only take away from this item because the smaller swings let you spam the bat, taking away the punishment for missing. Now is also a good time for me to talk about durability. Melee items like the Typhoon Blade now have their own health bar that slowly degrade the more you use them. This is meant to be a way to balance these items, and they did a terrible job with it. You can almost completely ignore the durability system. It almost doesn't matter. The durability goes down so slowly that as long as you're not constantly using the item, it will basically last the whole match anyway. And even if it does start to get low, all you need to do is pick up another one and shaboof, a fully charged kneecapper to get the win with. If you're gonna add in durability, you need to go full Breath of the Wild and have these things break after 10 to 20 hits. Otherwise, why even add it in the first place? The bat is so close. It is so close to being a good item. Just 2 changes and the kneecapper is perfect. Instead of 3 different swings, just have the one big swing take a full second to charge up, and that's it. That way, people can't spam it, and it's more of a high-risk, high-reward weapon. Also, these swings need to dramatically lower its durability. I'm talking like 10 to 15 a swing. That way you can't just baseball bat everyone into Storm every single game. You still can, but you are 1, punished heavily for missing a swing, and 2, you can't overly rely on it. The kneecapper was always gonna be a bullshit unfair weapon, but if you could just turn down that bullshit even just a little bit, it would make this item infinitely less infuriating. But the kneecapper was only half as infuriating as the exotic items. Alright, listen. I have no problem with a few exotics in rotation. They're just more fun items to help shake up the gameplay. That's not the problem. The problem is that you can't just hand out these exotics for free. And would you look at that? You can literally just pick up the exotics for free. Halfway through the season, Fortnite put in this mural quest that rewarded you with keycards. The more you get done in the quest, the higher level keycard you get. The keycard is what gives you access to the exotic items in the first place, but you still need to get a dilbit to get them. Unfortunately, there's a chest in the same room with the exotics that with a max level keycard just gives you a dilbit. Meaning that you can just land at a black market at the start of the game and pick up an exotic weapon within minutes of touching the ground. Are you fucking kidding me? That takes the same problem that medallions had and then cranks it up to 11. There was always at least one player that would land by the exotics and pick up the best one so no one else could get it. And these weapons ranged from a pump and dump that gave you 0-point dashes, a sniper that could ping enemies, and a full-on shockwave rocket launcher. And all you had to do to get these was grind out these quests as fast as possible to get the best weapons, giving an advantage to people who don't stop playing this game and putting a disadvantage on the people that go outside and have a life. All of these issues combined into what is probably the worst moment to happen to me in the entire chapter. I wasn't recording when this happened, but I got so angry that I went back into replay mode just to record this. If you look at the map, you can see that there is a player that grabbed the exotic shockwave rocket launcher off spawn, flings themselves all the way from Crime City to Lone Wolf Lair, and still had enough rockets to hit me 3 times with this thing. We're only 3 minutes into the match, by the way. I tried to run away and have a fight with this player until they knocked me into the swamp with the baseball bat, killing me with fall damage. This moment pissed me off so much that I closed Fortnite and installed Marvel Rivals. This season's loot pool was so unbalanced, so annoying that I spent a week straight learning how to main Jeff the Shark because I wanted nothing to do with Fortnite after that happened. Balancing a goofy item is a very fine line. Too weak and nobody uses it. Too strong and you define the meta around bullshit. And this meta is filled to the brim with bullshit. If it was just the kneecapper, it would still be annoying, but it would have been infinitely more tolerable. But these stupidly easy to access exotics just took a lot out of the game for me. Look, I don't hate this season's item rotation. It had a lot of ups and downs like any other season. But personally, the downs just hit so much harder. So many things just got in the way of me enjoying this season. But I do have to acknowledge the ups of the season as well. The kneecapper was awful to fight, but it was also plenty fun to use. And the goofy items outside of the exotics were also a lot of fun. And this season had both the mammoth pistol and a sniper, so I'm legally obligated to say that this season was fun. The low points of the season just felt so low that it's hard to remember the upsides, that's all. Anyways, Mortal Kombat! Sub-Zero was in the Battle Pass, and Scorpion was added as a boss on the map with his own medallion. What did this medallion do? I have no idea. Legit, I would forget I was even holding this thing half the time because it felt like it did nothing. It was a fun collaboration though. The Sub-Zero gauntlets were in rotation the whole season, allowing you to walk on water, do some cool little spear dashes, and perform a neat little melee combo that ended with an uppercut. Obviously. And of course you can't have Sub-Zero gauntlets without Scorpion gauntlets to complement them. Take a wild guess what these things do. Yeah, that's awesome. The melee damage these things would do was not the best, but hell, after the Typhoon Blade, I am perfectly okay with that. And that's really the only collaboration this season. At least it's the only big one. They did some promo stuff with T-Pain, but like that didn't really end up going anywhere. I don't know why they did that. The season comes to an end with the little event I showed off earlier. Daigo dives into the spirit world and we're rewarded for helping with a cutscene. That's cute. This Piggle character, that was never established prior to this event happening, breaks into the mask shop, and we see a glimpse of what's happening to Daigo. His body is being consumed by demons, turning him into a demonic being himself, and all of that gets put on pause. We gotta deal with another thing happening right now because the moon is getting closer to the island. Except that's no moon. Because the moon haunts you. Before we can figure out what's happening with Daigo, it's time for Star Wars!
Where my Wookiees at? Where my Wookiees at?
Galactic Battle, an entire Fortnite season centered around Star Wars. Well, not an entire season, they call it a mini-season, but it's basically the same... Wait, they took out the roll. They took out the roll. They took out the roll. They took out the roll! One of the first things I noticed this season was how movement just didn't feel the same. And that's because they removed the newer movement mechanics they just added. Wall scrambles and the leap are still here, but they removed wall kicks and more importantly, they removed the landing roll. This makes movement just feel so much worse. Instead of continuing that movement in a large jump, now you just stand there, like nothing happened. Ugh. Now, sure, Fortnite's movement mechanics have been perfectly fine for the past 7 years without a roll. A lot of players just saw it as another action that requires a spacebar press, and how it was an unnecessary part of gameplay. But it's not about the gameplay, it's about the game feel. By Steve Swink. That's the book I use to level my monitors. In it, Swink talks about the importance of little details and flourishes like this, and how they affect the feel of the game. Quote, "If all polish was removed, the essential functionality of the game would be unalterable. But the player will find the experience less perceptually convincing and therefore less appealing. This is because, for players, simulation and polish are indistinguishable. Feel can be just as strongly influenced by polish effects as by a collision system. The roll by no means was a necessary part of movement, just a little extra polish to make it all come together. But by having it absent makes large jumps less satisfying, hitting the ground like nothing happened and giving less of an impact. Without it, the game still functions, but now, movement just has less of an oomph to it. Game feel is a really difficult topic to explain through words. If you've never played Fortnite with the roll, you might be confused why I'm making such a big deal out of it. But movement just feels off without a roll. It was only in the game for about 6 months, and it really didn't do that much. But I just miss rolling out of a large jump, and it just doesn't feel the same without it.
Shut the fuck up, man.
Oh yeah, Star Wars is here. I completely forgot. Let's talk about that instead. The Death Star has its target on the Fortnite island for some reason. If you're wondering how this ties into the larger Fortnite story, don't worry, it doesn't. Previous collab seasons like Nexus War and Absolute Doom made an effort to make the seasonal collab make sense and have a reason for why it was happening. And for this one, they didn't even try. The Death Star is gonna shoot the island. Why? For what purpose? Stop asking questions. Go shoot people with lasers. This normally doesn't bother me too much when Fortnite does this. I'm okay with hand-wavy explanations from time to time. But what bothers me about this is how we're in the middle of a legitimately interesting story arc with Daigo. And all of it was just put on pause for no rhyme or reason. Daigo's story has nothing to do with the Death Star showing up. And now we have to wait a whole season before we get back to what's happening. That sucks. But like, whatever, we're here now. May the Fortnite be with you. Let's go shoot wombats or whatever. A Star Wars season requires Star Wars weapons, and they went to town with these things. Every single gun in the loot pool has been replaced with a Star Wars equivalent. We got rifle blasters, we got shotgun blasters, we got SMG blasters, and they all have long, incoherent names. Man, this is great for my dyslexia. I'm sure die-hard Star Wars fans love seeing this, but for me, this just made things very confusing. I don't know what an A2080 CFE is, or how it's any different from the IQA11. I just want a gun, dude. Because every weapon is a blaster, that also makes every weapon almost feel identical to each other. There's only so many different ways you can make a laser gun, and I have to admire the dedication here because they are really trying to make these things unique. All the guns do fire slightly differently from each other, and the core rifle, shotgun, and SMGs are still there, but at the end of the day, they're all just blasters. They can only be so different. It also didn't help that all the guns just look similar too. It's hard to tell the difference between these things. I mean, yeah, you can tell the difference between a rifle and a shotgun, but it can be hard to tell the difference between what is a pump and what is an auto, or what's a DMR and what is a sniper. And these names really are not helping that much. On the bright side, there was also no ammo this season. One of the few good things from having every weapon be a blaster is that every weapon had infinite ammo and would just overheat if you fired it too many times. And there were some standouts in the loot pool. The Jawa shotgun did a large amount of damage, the Wookiee bowcaster is always fun when it comes back to rotation, and when all else fails, you can just hop into a ship and just fucking annihilate people with overpowered vehicles. Sure, this is fair. The ships were a very contentious part of the season. You could just fly around the map shooting down other players who struggled to fight back. These things would just destroy other players on the ground who didn't have a vehicle. They had a crazy amount of health, shot for an absurd amount of damage, and all you had to do to get one was just find one on the map. Close enough. Welcome back, Wrecked. For a lot of people, their experience was having these ships fly around every single match and unfairly give one player the advantage. But for me, my experience was very different. I never once died to a ship. Not during the entire season. I looked through all of my footage from the season, and I never died to another player in a ship. And it wasn't from lack of trying. I would actively shoot at these things because of how little I feared them. I know they can wreck entire teams because we would actively do that to other people. We were the teams in the ship most of the time shooting down other players on the ground. I know full well how powerful these ships can be. But when we were the team on the ground fighting a ship, we would just win? Like, it really wasn't that hard to take these things down. Not only did ships give off a large visual icon, but they also turn very slowly. It's easy to know when a ship is going to shoot at you, giving you plenty of time to go into cover. Also, to remind you, guns have infinite ammo. It really didn't matter how much health these things have, because you never lost resources shooting at them. I'm honestly surprised how much people hated these things, because they really weren't that hard to deal with. I don't get to say this often, but if you struggled fighting the ships in Galactic Battle, that sounds like a skill issue, dude. These things were probably too strong and very non-competitive for most players, but this video isn't about those players. It's about my experience with the season, and I thought ships were honestly one of the few interesting parts of the season, but hey, that's just me. A new season also, unfortunately, means new medallions. Thankfully, we only got one this season, which is the Industry Plant Stormtrooper medallion. It slows down how fast your blaster heats up. That's it. Not really worth going for, honestly, especially having it be the only medallion this season. Well, there was one other medallion that got removed about halfway through the season. Darth Vader had his own coin, but it got replaced with an AI Darth Vader NPC you can talk to. Okay. Now, before we talk about this, I want you to take your preconceived notions about AI and put them aside for a second. Forget everything you've ever heard about AI. Just completely ignore the can of worms that is the AI discussion. I know that might be hard for some people, but just trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. What is this? What does it do? It is an NPC Darth Vader you can get that will talk to you throughout a match. It will tell you when Storm is closing, it will compliment you on how well you perform, and with the right combination of words, you can make it say some outlandish things.
Explain Bonar, Mr. Peace. Is it a strategic location?
It's just a walking, talking NPC. But in terms of Fortnite NPCs, this has to be one of the worst ones they've ever added. Sure, it has a lot of health, it plays very aggressively, and you can talk to it with your mouth. But other than that, its limitations start becoming very clear. The capabilities of the Vader NPC are very limiting compared to NPCs Fortnite has had in the past. If you weren't aware, you can press the middle mouse button to give an NPC commands. You can tell them to stop moving, you can tell them to move to a specific point, and most usefully, you can tell them to res a teammate. It doesn't always work, and sometimes you have to give the command multiple times, but hey, it's still an option, buggy or not. However, the Darth Vader NPC can't do any of these. They don't show up on the wheel, you can only dismiss it and nothing else. Now you may think, oh, I have to tell Vader to do these things through the AI, but no.
Vader, can you stand right here?
I do not take direction,
Can't you
Meow
ping him?
Skulls. The Force guides my actions.
No.
not your whims.
Can you stand by these slurp rolls so we can heal you?
Healing is a temporary reprieve, Meow Skulls.
Okay, bitch.
The Vader AI does not take commands. It will just tell you it doesn't want to and then call you an idiot in the process. Even obvious things like, hey, people are shooting at you, move out of the way, it won't respond and just die out in the open. What's the point of having an AI NPC if you can't tell it what to do in-game? You can't tell it to move, you can't tell it to attack, and it won't res teammates. What's even the point of having an AI NPC if you can't go full Lifeline voice action adventure? This is the reason I told you to put your preconceived notions about AI aside, because even if you're pro AI, which I'm not, you have to admit this thing's capabilities are incredibly limited. You cannot command it through the voice chat feature and it will actively insult you if you try. This thing's sole purpose is to walk around and say funny things during a Fortnite match. That's it. Congratulations, you added Cleverbot to Fortnite. This is what you wanted, right? And if I'm being 100% honest, my biggest gripe I have with AI Vader has nothing to do with the AI itself. It's because it's the only thing they added halfway into this season. They made it seem like there were going to be 5 major updates that would happen throughout the season, but some of these, quote, updates were just them adding a lightsaber to rotation and calling it a day. And if you look at the dates, we went weeks without any changes. In reality, there were 3 updates. Count them, 3 updates during the entirety of Galactic Battle. The first one was the season itself. The second one was entirely about AI Vader. And the third one was about the Star Destroyer update. That's all the content we got during an entire 5-week season. The first week of the season was fun. Playing with all the new Star Wars weapons and ships was enjoyable. And the last week of the season was also fun. The Star Destroyer added a grandiose feel to it, and by that point there were enough changes to make the loot pool feel fresh again. But the middle of the season felt completely lackluster. Previous mini-seasons like OG 1 and 2 had weekly content updates to keep things interesting throughout it. And again, they made it seem like this season was gonna be the same, but instead, they didn't do that much to keep things interesting, only putting 1 or 2 items in rotation every week, which is fine for a normal season, but for a mini-season like this, it just doesn't feel that good. Alright, let's try to get through the rest of the season quickly. I don't want to be here anymore. A handful of Star Wars locations got added to the map. They were neat. Outpost Enclave was my favorite one because it added a whole new biome to the map with a space desert vibe. It had a very condensed city with a bunch of small buildings together, a random hole in the ground, and a Jawa desert crawler. That's cute. The other locations are okay. I don't have a problem with them directly. What I have a problem with is the locations they replaced. Remember when I said Season 1 locations were both visually interesting and interesting loadouts? Well, they got replaced with locations that look okay and don't really have any interesting layouts. They took Whiffy off the map and replaced it with the Resistance base. Sorry, the Resistance base. It's just 4 tunnels in the ground, and that's about it. Did we really need to lose Whiffy over this? Whiffy was completely over the lake next to this base. There was no reason to remove all of Whiffy for Poe Dameron's dirt hut. The same goes for the First Order base. They took out Demon's Dojo and replaced it with black square tunnels. It just feels like a downgrade from what was here before, but whatever. They should be gone by next season, right? And of course, no Star Wars season would be complete without a Star Wars Battle Pass. The skins in this Battle Pass were Wookiee Team Leader and... I forgot the rest. I legit don't remember who else was in it. Wookiee Team Leader was like the only one I remember. Who else was in that? Poe Dameron, Padawan Eve, and Emperor Palpatine with General Grievous as a bonus skin. For Star Wars fans, it's a pretty good pass. It just sucks that this Battle Pass is still 1,000 V-Bucks despite the fact it has half the content in it. Other than that, I have no qualms with it. Lastly, we come to an end of the season with a big event, the Death Star Sabotage. I had very low expectations going into this, as I do for most live events. I don't know if I've mentioned this yet, but I just don't like live events. They just feel like a Half-Life cutscene that you only get to experience once, and it's really not that big of a deal if you miss them. They're usually big spectacles with very little gameplay to them. They're cool to look at, but that's about it. I do want to say, the little game mode they had before the event started was incredibly fun. You had to either protect or defeat a Star Destroyer while fighting other players in ships. This was super fun. It's wild to me that Fortnite would spend development time on a game that was only playable for like an hour, but to be fair, that was one hell of an hour. Anyways, the event happened. We walked down some corridors, we shot some guys, and we listened to some quirky dialogue.
Show me your identification.
You don't need to see my identification.
What?
Hey, worth a shot, right?
It was neat and all, but like, not that much happened. We just kind of walked around for 20 minutes while intense Star Wars music played in the background. I don't really get the hype, but like I said, I don't really like live events, so I'm not really the best person to judge if this was good or not. I don't know. Anyways, let's digress from the side quest because the Star Wars season is finally over. A part of the Death Star came crashing down to the island, hitting Daigo's portal. Remember that thing? I didn't. It caused a burst of energy to come out, leaving the loopers with superpowers, I think. And of course, there's only one way to learn how to use superpowers. It's time for these heroes to go to the academy. Season 3, the 4th season of Chapter 6. Some people say it's the 3rd season, but those people clearly don't know how to count. After destroying Daigo's portal, everybody gets superpowers, and the obvious next step is to create a school for these superheroes. The main focus of this season are these superhero students who are the characters that make up the battle pass. And they put a lot of effort into these characters, not only making them all individually interesting, but also making them all feel like a superhero team working together. You almost never see any of these characters alone in any promotional material, and they're all in multiple loading screens together, fighting, training, just hanging out, being buds. Little things like this help make them feel like they're like a club that would get breakfast together. I've never seen The Breakfast Club. It also helps that all these characters are just brimming with personality. Haley Sky is a bright and bubbly cheerleader who can go full beast mode. Synthwave can blast sound waves, and she never stops jamming out to her music. Ziggy, Light Rider, is the arrogant, egotistical one who thinks they're better than everyone else. I don't really know what her powers are, but I like her vibes, she's neat. Killswitch has high accuracy with high-tech gear, and lastly is their leader, Morgan Mist, who looks like the girl you saw out of the corner of your eye during the From Ashes to New concert that you can't stop thinking about. Just me? That might just be me. I really love what they're trying to do with these characters, giving the season a more personality-driven focus. But it's just not quite there yet. There are some major hurdles in the way, stopping these characters from being as good as they could be. For some reason, Fortnite really doesn't want you to know who these people are. Outside from a few trailers, these characters are never really used that much. They never get a chance to shine. Most players don't sit down and read NPC dialogue, and most of the time they're punished for doing so. It wouldn't surprise me if most Fortnite players just completely missed the superhero team storyline because it's very easy to miss. If they just put these characters more front and center, it would have done wonders for the game. If they just had little cinematics, like what they did for the Gods and Myths Immortals, or even just having voice lines where the students banter to each other as a reward for doing quests. Just something to give these characters a spotlight. That's all I'm really asking for here. I just wish I saw more out of these characters. Now that the season is over, we'll probably be hearing very little from this group ever again. But I am glad we got what little time we did with these characters. They're cool. Another cool thing Fortnite did with these characters was give them all their own unique weapons. Every single student, except Ziggy, got 1 or 2 weapons added that are based on their powers. That's another reason why I love these characters so much. And another reason I'm confused they didn't do more with them, but whatever, we're moving on. Morgan Mist gave us the Mist Gauntlets, which let you throw crows at people. It had a very forgiving area of effect, letting you just look in the general direction of an enemy to deal damage, but only if they were close enough. Scarlet Witch also had another ability you can use where you could turn invisible for a short time called the Mist Form. You can travel a good distance with this thing, and it protects you from all damage, including from Storm. You can't go super far with this thing, and it only has 10 charges, so it's not the best mobility item, but it's really unique, and you can turn it into the Ascended Mist. If you hold both of Morgan's items at once, they combine into one powerful item with unlimited dashes and a ridiculous amount of crows to throw at people. However, unlimited OK dashes still means you only have OK dashes. The better mobility item was the Synthwave Bass Boost. I loved these things. I especially loved how the little blast you shoot out play her theme song. To get the best out of these things, you had to jump and then attack in the opposite direction you wanted to go. They're a little confusing at first, but they're a really fun way to get around. Mobility is this item's main use. You can use it for attacking, but the player damage is very low. However, the structure damage is super high, so their main use was just dicking with the enemy team and getting close enough to hit a nasty clip. That's probably the best gameplay you'll see out of me the entire chapter. You peaked here, folks. Enjoy it. Hey, speaking of super fun weapons, how have I not mentioned the kill switches yet? Say hello to the best item Fortnite has ever added. Based off of Kill Switch, these are dual pistols that let you slow-mo dive in any direction like you're playing Max Payne. These were so stupid fun in the best way possible. You know a weapon is good when we're giggling the whole time we're using them.
You got this.
No, oh my god. You should not have won that.
I thought these things were gonna be terrible. A slow motion dive is not the best move when every other player is still moving at normal speed. But the dive gives you perfect accuracy with no bloom, helping with your shots, and the slow motion dive just cancels fall damage. I was just using these things because I thought they were funny. I had no idea they were good. This is the best weapon added the entire chapter. Hands down, it's great. Kill Switch also gave us the Tracking Visor, which can both mark enemies and also show you their footprints. That's fun. And Light Rider gave us the Surf Cube. Wait, is that her power? Just controlling the funny cubes or what? I don't know. The Surf Cube is fun. It's more of a traversal mobility item, so it's not the best for getting you out of a sticky situation. It's more about getting from one location to another fairly quickly. The last power we got was from Haley Sky, the Storm Beast. This thing was overpowered for like a day, and then everybody figured out how to fight it, and it wasn't a problem anymore. The funny cheerleader pom-poms let you turn into a big beast with a lot of health, with some predictable attack patterns and a jump attack with weird physics I never really understood. If you're not prepared to fight one of these things, they can be a real pain to deal with. Suddenly having to deal with a 600 health beast in the middle of a fight is awful. However, there were some very basic counters you could do to fight back with the base boost and the kill switches. Also, after the previously established incident, I rarely play solo anymore, and in squads, the Storm Beast is a joke. I will give the Storm Beast credit because it's the first time they got durability right. If you go into beast mode prematurely and want to go back to normal, boom, 30% durability decrease. Either use the item properly or suffer the consequences, as it should be. All of the weapons based off of Battle Pass characters are incredible and a highlight of the season, which is great, because all the other weapons this season felt like garbage. Maybe I'm being too harsh in saying that, but using any other weapon this season other than a superhero one was just... ugh. As good as the hero weapons are, the core weapon rotation had very little going for it. There were only 2 ARs in the loot pool, the Fury and the Spire Rifle. The Spire Rifle shot very slow, reloaded very slow, but had a very large magazine size. I just didn't like using this thing. I don't know if it's just because it sounded like a kid's toy or because I couldn't hit anything with this, but I just can't stand this gun, dude. And as you may have noticed, there's no scope on this gun, meaning that this is the first season since Chapter 3 to have no scoped ARs in rotation. I know some people have a problem with the scope AR meta, making it, quote, too easy to hit shots, but in turn, now it's just hard to hit anything. Thankfully, there was a new DMR added, Remember those? Unfortunately, I don't like the Deadeye DMR either. Like, it works, you can shoot people from a good distance, but the scope dot just felt a little too big. It felt like I had to guess where in that tiny circle my shot was gonna land. That being said, I did get a little schnasty with this thing sometimes, so maybe I was just out of practice with a DMR and just felt off. I don't know. This means that out of all 3 options you have for long range, I enjoyed almost none of these, making every long range fight feel like a slog to play. At least for me, it did. If somebody actually liked using the Spire Rifle or the Deadeye, this season probably wasn't that bad. We also got 2 really nice close-range weapons. The Hyperburst pistol was fun. I really enjoyed using that. It comboed very nicely with the Outlaw shotgun. I know, this item was added last season, however, it wasn't until this season where I actually tried using it more, and I actually really like this thing. It only has 2 shots, but if you manage to hit both of them, even if they're just body shots, you can get an opponent super low, allowing you to get a nice finish with the burst pistol. But other than these 2 weapons, it's hard to explain, but the core loot pool just didn't feel right to me. When I say core loot pool, I'm referring to items you would see in any Fortnite season. ARs, shotguns, SMGs and pistols, healing items, things you would see regardless of the season theme. Then you have your seasonal weapons that make each season stand out. That's your ballistic shields, your shockwave hammers, and for this season, that's the hero weapons. And as good as these items are, the core still needs to be there because those are the weapons you'll be using in most fights. It doesn't matter how good the seasonal items are if I don't like any of the base weapons. And very little of the base loot pool was gelling with me. Things like learning to enjoy the Outlaw and the burst pistol were enjoyable. Combine this with the superhero weapons and you had some really fun close range fights. It's a shame the other half of fights in the season were awful. Speaking of awful, what the fuck is happening to this map? Remember when I gushed about how nice and well designed all the POIs were? Well, most of them are gone now. With each season, we lose more of those Season 1 locations, and have them replaced with new areas that just don't hit the same. We lost Magic Mosses for Supernova Academy. They legit just bulldozed a forest to make room for this stupid school. It's not a terrible location, but it's also nothing too special either. And it looks and feels very similar to Utopia City. You can just tell that the reference image for this place was the Paradise Future meme. They just look kind of bland, and there's nothing really unique about the layouts of these places either. They feel very similar to the Star Wars locations, where they were just added for the sake of adding something. And speaking of which, why are the Star Wars locations still here? The bland and boring Star Wars POIs are still here for some reason, even though the Star Wars season is over. Keeping the Enclave, I can understand, it adds a little variety to the map, but why keep the 2 boring ones? This map is quickly becoming a shell of its former self, as newer locations fail to live up to the expectations that the old ones set, with one notable exception, Demon's Domain. Now that Daigo's the big bad of the season, he gets a big evil lair to call his own. I love the jaggedy edges of this place with the gold accents scattered throughout. This place is so evil that it stole the clouds from Crime City. It's all one big tower with a boss fight with Daigo near the top. The whole place has this evil possessed energy to it, with rock faces very similar to the underworld in Chapter 5. The colors in this place do feel a little sludgy gray, but it more than makes up for it for having a cool layout. Like I mentioned, there's a boss fight with Daigo here, and he drops a medallion. And the medallions this season were completely forgettable. Hooray! I legit don't remember what either of them do, and I can't be bothered to look them up, so I'm just gonna pretend like they're not here. I'm also just gonna skip over the rank system that they added. I'll talk about it more next season when it's more interesting. Okay, so like what's happening with Daigo anyway? His trip to the spirit realm left him dark and evil, and now he plans to take over the island with these spire things. I think they're meant to contact demons, I don't know. Anyways, you can fight these spires for loot. There are weaker spires that drop some okay gear, and there are boss spires that drop more exotics. Oh boy. Thankfully, there's only 3 exotics that can drop instead of the 28 from last season, and they're not a guarantee. They also don't have nearly as bullshitty abilities as last season. Just a goofy shockwave pistol and some funky shotguns. I'm still angry they're here, but not as angry as I was last season. I can tolerate these. Daigo uses these spires to gain more power so he can summon a giant beast to help him take over the island. It's really cool seeing Daigo's character evolve over this chapter. He started as a loner character who we later cheered for when he fought with Shogun X. But after seeing him help Fletcher Kane and become corrupted by demons, he's turned into one of Fortnite's most interesting. That's it? That's how his story ends? Okay, sure, whatever. The superhero students show up in comic panels to help us fight off whatever tentacle monster Daigo was summoning in a kind of boring boss fight. Did I mention that I don't like live events? There were some cool moments where some of the heroes got to do a special attack on the monster, but in terms of gameplay, all we did was shoot at a tentacle until, its health bar suddenly went back up to full health. And now there's 3 tentacles. Oh no, what will we do? Whoever will save us from this situation. It's not like there's 5 perfectly capable superheroes and Ziggy who could do something. I'm just kidding. Superman showed up at the last second to save the day and undermine the Supernova students even more than they've already been. Look, I get it. He's here to promote the new movie or whatever, but I gotta say, stealing the spotlight from a bunch of teenagers trying their best is not very punk rock of you, dude. I'll give them some credit at least. They did manage to tie in a blatant movie advertisement into the storyline somewhat seamlessly. I should probably talk more about the Superman collab items. I don't think I've mentioned those yet. Good Boy Crypto was added to the game. You can use him like a junk riff by just throwing down a dog treat and he just dies for that thing through buildings and players. Aw, who's a good boy? Who's a good menace to the island? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. The Kryptonian form also had a chance to spawn during a match to let you pretend to be Superman for a little bit. It was neat. I like how you were on a timer while you were in the form and the only way to stay in it was to kill other players. And then they also added in Superman's classic move, the Kamehameha to rotation later in the season. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know why they added the Dragon Ball items back in for a little bit, but I'm really glad they did. It made me laugh. And that was Fortnite Super. This season felt kind of hollow. As good as some parts of it were, other parts felt like they still needed some work. Everything with the Supernova students was good, and everything else wasn't. It just felt like they were going for style over substance with this one, or at least that's how I felt. I've seen a lot of people say that this is one of their favorite Fortnite seasons in recent memory, and man, I wish I could say the same. I adore so much of this season, but when you don't get the core gameplay right, it's just hard for me to appreciate everything else. Regardless, this season is over, and now we move on to the last season of Chapter 6. The last one. Definitely. The last season of Fortnite Chapter 6. Shock and awesome. This season fucks! The juices from the tentacle have attracted bugs to the island, and it's up to the OXR to eradicate them, using the best loot pool of the whole chapter. Oh, this one was so much fun. First off, let's talk about ranks. Last season, these were introduced as a type of constant mid-match objective. You earn points by opening chests, surviving storm circles, and eliminating players. Earn enough points and your rank will go up. Last season, these things were kind of uneventful. All you got from your rank was unlocking some chests and some special boons. It was an interesting addition, but it just didn't feel substantive. The rewards were so minimal, there was almost no reason to go for a high rank. But that was last season. This season, the rewards are much better. Every time you rank up, they drop a Helldiver's pod on you, filled with loot. The higher the rank, the better the loot you get. These are much more substantial rewards, and they also feel more gratifying. Instead of getting some bonus effect that you might not even notice you have, you now get what is basically the equivalent of a free rare chest with better guns. And the new guns this season are just so much fun to use. To fight off a horde of bugs, obviously, you need to have a brand new minigun. The Lead Spitter 3000 is an unruly gun, spitting out an absurd amount of bullets once it's fully revved up. It shoots so many bullets that you can see the crosshair freaking out, and the sounds this thing make are wonderful. This thing is incredibly fun to shoot, if only it did any damage. This minigun does not shred people, it chips them, doing a weirdly small amount of damage. Each bullet only does 5 damage each. That's 13 less than the default minigun. And because of the all over the place aim with this thing, it can be hard to hit people. This gun is weirdly terrible, but I don't mind that. This thing is still plenty fun to use, and you can get a kill with this thing if you try hard enough. It's a really good spray and pray weapon. Obviously, it's a minigun. Sure, it's not the most effective weapon, but it's fun to shoot, so I don't care. It's also fun to use the Swarm Strike, a rocket launcher that shoots 7 rockets that you can control. Holding down right click after you fire, you'll go full on Half-Life 2 and the rockets will just follow wherever you aim. You could do that, or you could just point blank someone with it. Each rocket this thing fires does 30 damage. With 7 rockets shot, this thing does a total of 210 damage. That's an insta-kill in build mode, and it drops a healthy 0 build player down to 40. That's absurd, but thankfully, the hitboxes on the rocket are fairly small. You need to hit someone dead on to deal the 210 damage, and a lot of the time, that doesn't happen, with the rockets only dealing about 100 damage. And the reload on this thing takes so long. You only get 1 close range shot before you're left defenseless with this thing, so you better make that hit count. Shout out to this guy who tried so hard to kill me with close-up rocket shots, but they just couldn't aim the thing properly. It's like they heard rockets can one-shot people, but they just don't know how. Anyway, I finished that fight with the Wrecker revolver. Oh, the Wrecker was so good. It's a pistol that behaves like a shotgun. Sure, why not? This thing could just pepper people from a distance. It didn't do that much damage, but with a very forgiving spread shot, a super fast fire rate, and being able to hit people from a crazy distance, you saw everyone carry one of these things because it's an incredibly versatile weapon. This thing was powerful, but it's not perfect. Like I said, this gun can deal damage from far away, but it only does about 30 damage a shot from that distance. It's still crazy that a shotgun can hit from there, but an AR can do that same damage much faster. And in close range, this thing starts to fall apart. This thing does less damage than the other shotguns in rotation. So while the Wrecker is really good at mid-range, when someone got in your face, the other shotguns outperformed it. I still think the Wrecker is incredibly powerful, but I don't think it's as busted as a lot of people said it was. These 3 items were seen as the troublemakers of the season. They were the items being called overpowered and game-breaking, but they are clearly not. All of these weapons have very notable drawbacks. The Lead Spitter fires ridiculously fast, but it doesn't do that much damage. The Swarm Strike can deal 200 damage, but only with a well-aimed shot. The only weapon that I can even consider being too strong is the Wrecker, and even then, it has its downsides. This is the reason that this season fucks, because there is no one item that dominates the entire loot pool. We got items that were still fun, but nothing that felt like a must carry. It felt like I was free to carry whatever I wanted without being pigeonholed into using the best items. Everything they added this season just felt like a toy that was just added in for fun. They even added in special choppers that play the OXR theme as you approach people. I can't get over how much fun this all is. Now, of course, a bug battle themed season wouldn't be complete without some items from the bugs themselves. and we got the Bug Blaster. This thing is basically a charged rocket launcher. The longer you charge it for, the bigger the blast. The bigger the blast, the higher the damage. I loved using this thing, dude. It felt nice to charge up a shot and hit people around corners. The only problem I had was the animation of equipping this thing. Jeez, I feel like I should blur that. So that was one item, but what about the others? What other bug-related items did we get? That's it? That's the only bug-themed item we got? The whole season, just one bug item. That's awful. Well, we did get these little roly-poly guys around the map. They were a really fun way to get around the map. But that was all we got for bugs. For a bug-themed season, there's not a lot of bug-themed items, and that really bugged me. Other items added this season were the OXR rifle, an overall solid weapon. They put in these new launch pads that send you incredibly high into the air, and they also added in the sweeper shotgun, which had a very wide but thin spread. Ring ring, ring ring, hello, Evochrome shotgun? Yeah, someone's stealing your bit. Also, speaking of shotguns, they replaced the twin fire shotgun with the frenzy shotgun. Why? That's like replacing a Coke with a Pepsi and expecting people to notice. They did another switch up like that later in the season too. We started with shockwave launchers, but they removed them after a few weeks. And then they replaced them with fucking shockwave hammers. You can just do that? No durability changes. No changes to these things at all. They just put one of my favorite items into rotation for no reason. Did I mention I like this season? God, this season just feels like I'm a kid again playing in the sandbox with my Power Rangers toys. Oh, by the way, the Power Rangers are here, and my 6-year-old self is losing his mind. The Power Rangers only got 2 items added to the game. The Blade Blaster functioned like an explosive Monarch pistol. The fire rate changes between hip fire and ADS, and when you did aim down sights, it did explosion damage. It was only in the loot pool for a few weeks, alongside the entire Megazord. Oh, this is awesome. It functioned very similar to Godzilla, except your whole team piloted the Zord together while you fought off a queen bug. I loved the touch of having the Zord put itself together in the distance before you could activate it. It looked awesome. And that also gave plenty of warning where the Zord was gonna land. So if you wanted to avoid fighting the Zord, you had plenty of time to run away. While the Megazord is fighting the Queen Bug, other players can shoot at it, and whoever does the most damage when the Megazord is defeated gets a medallion. It's just the Emma Frost coin again, it's nothing too scary, but that being said, medallions got a very noticeable change this season. So there were 3 medallions this season, and you got them from fighting the giant bug queens on the map. They were very simple fights, and it wasn't really hard to get them. Now, this is where I would normally start complaining. These coins have been the bane of my existence for almost 2 years now, and this season was no different. Until we received the best news in Fortnite history. They're gone. They did it. They removed medallions. Oh my god, they're fucking gone! Medallions were removed 3 weeks into the season, and I could not be more happy. Every single season, this chapter has had some degree of bullshit that you had to deal with. Some kind of overpowered strategy or annoying mechanic you had to fight against at some point in every match. The Typhoon Blade and Shogun X medallions, the Kneecapper, the Star Wars ships, floating islands that gave insane height, easy access to exotics. There was always something you had to deal with in every match. Something that you either had to use yourself or fight against someone else using it if you didn't. It felt too gimmicky, relying on the one strongest method to win every fight. But Shock and Awesome went out of its way to fight back against that notion. There is no one strategy. There is no one item you need to use. The strong items in rotation are commonplace and have clear drawbacks. Exotics take effort to get, being locked behind vaults that don't open immediately and are not guaranteed in every match. And by removing medallions, no one location gives a severe advantage to one player. There is no more overpowered, gimmicky abilities that give one player a heavy advantage. Okay, maybe there's still a little bullshit in the game. I know a lot of people despise this season. Sure, I get it. Nobody likes change, and having items be nerfed or removed not even halfway into a season just doesn't feel good. I understand the complaints, and no one season is for everyone. However, after non-stop complaining about medallions, over the course of 2 entire retrospective videos, I am so happy to see these things gone and buried. They're still in ranked for some reason, but like, I don't care about ranked anymore. This season feels like such a nice return to form, back to having skill in the loot pool determine the winner and not picking up some shiny coin. Every season has its bullshit, this one's no exception, but now, bullshit is only an occasional annoyance and not a required one. I am so glad medallions are gone. I never want to see these things again, and their removal continues to prove that this season fucks. You wanna know what doesn't fuck? The stupid map changes. It feels like the whole island has just been going downhill since Season 1, especially because all of the changes have just been on one side of the map most of the time. The mountain range cutting through the middle is still there, the fields in the lower right were almost untouched, but all of the forests have been completely removed. Night Shift Forest was taken away in Season 2, Season 3 removed magic mosses, and this season, the unnamed swamp area has been replaced with bluegrass and bug-infested nests. And the new locations really aren't anything special. They all blend together in my mind, being bug-infested gray blobs with no real sense of structure. The only real positive thing I can say is that I like the blue smoke that comes out of the hives. That looks really nice. Other than that, I don't really like this place. But to be fair, there was at least one good location added this season, being the OXR base. This place is gigantic, being made up of multiple buildings connected by open walkways, has some interesting verticality in places, and has these cute little bug cutouts you can shoot. I love what they did with the OXR base, and there's a few smaller ones around the map, indicated by these little glowy bits. Also, I really like how they're using contrasting colors, having the bug areas use blue tones and the OXR using orange ones. I see what you're doing there. These little mini bases are a nice little touch, even having little markets you can buy items in. They feel like little safe places in this complete cluster of a map. I know it's the end of the season, and the map at the end of every chapter looks like a complete mess by this point, but with the loss of so many good POIs over the year, this map's just not what it used to be. And neither is Daigo. He's just back to normal now. After everything he's been through, being a driving force behind most of this chapter's story, one slap from a squid and he's just fully back to normal. Like nothing happened. Man, that's anticlimactic. Other than that, the storyline this season is about helping the OXR stop the bugs. The members of the OXR make up this season's battle pass. They're neat and all, but we're running into that cookie cutter problem again. I really don't hate this pass, but there's just nothing new in it. A furry in a suit? I got 2 of those already. A badass bitch of a woman? I've got a few of these. Badass bitch of a man? I've got some of those as well. It's the same problem with Lawless. Fortnite's Battle Pass has been following the same formula of character design for so long now that none of these characters really stand out other than the collab skin. I do really like this pass. There's just nothing in here I would actually use. Other than a handful of fairly small problems, I really enjoyed this season. I just wish the map was better, and I really wish they handled the theme better. The bugs showed a lot of promise at the start of the season, but slowly got weaker and weaker as the season progressed. At first, bugs attacked OXR bases, and you had to clear them out to get to the NPCs. But later, bases were perfectly safe. Not only that, but the bugs got nerfed into the ground, going from dealing 3 damage to 1. I guess the OXR just eradicated the bugs very quickly. And then, October 1st. This is the day that Shock and Awesome technically ended. The bugs are gone. Like, fully gone. After the Megazord update, the bugs were just fully off the map. Now this is where things start to get complicated for me, because Fortnite went wild for Fortnitemares this year. They added so much content and changed so much that it basically felt like an entirely new season. There is so much to cover out of nowhere. They added so much content, in fact, that You know what? Fuck it. Give Fortnitemares its own title card. It deserves it this year. 6 POIs. They added 6 locations to the map. After the bugs left, all of the bug-infested areas got renovated into much better locations. And I gotta say, this place looks a lot nicer with less gray mush on the ground. Harmony Hills and Ranger's Rest are revitalized versions of previous locations, and Bugwater Beach is entirely new. They filled the Queen's Nest with water, built a nice little beach house, and turned the place into a nice little vacation spot. And the Megazord sword is still here. That's awesome. Dreamy Domain also looks so nice. After Daigo got slapped by a tentacle, this place just kind of fell apart. But now, with the purple trees and luscious grass, it looks so much nicer. And I do really like how they left it open where the tower used to be. It gives this place what is essentially an arena to fight in. Hey look, I'm complimenting the game's level design. I've not done that in like an hour. Now, some locations are identical, just with a new name and some vines sprinkled around. Like, Gordy Gate is just Foxy with pumpkins. But there are 2 fully new locations, and they replaced the Star Wars POIs. They're finally gone. Jesus Christ, those things were in the game longer than Rolling was. Freaky Fields is the first returning POI since Tilted Towers. That's fun to see. It has all the same buildings it did last year. Barn, house, wheat field, just no spooky train. And on the other side of the map is Creepy Camp, a nice little campsite by a lake. This is the perfect place to camp during the Halloween season. Like, what could possibly go wrong? Maybe he's friendly. Just like last year, a cavalcade of horror collabs dropped throughout the event. Jason, Ghostface, The Grabber, Art the Clown, Huggy Wuggy, the Repo guys for some reason, and Scooby-Doo! There were so many collabs this year. They even did a full update just for K-pop Demon Hunters. I know the KDH update was technically before Fortnitemares happened, but like whatever, I don't care, they're basically the same thing. They really went all out with the skins this year, and we even got a lot of really good Fortnite originals, including some new High Stakes Club skins. I love when Fortnite actually remembers their original characters from time to time. They should really do that more. Now, weapon rotation didn't change that much. Pretty much everything from Shock and Awesome is still here, just with some new additions. Some Fortnitemares staples have returned. The Woodstick Shotgun, the Pumpkin Launcher, and the Chainsaw were added back along with the Witch Broom. It's always fun to see these things return. The new items include these Scooby Snacks. These heal you for both health and shields and give you a funny little speed boost. The only other item they added was Last Call, which just fully turns you into Ghostface. This thing gives you a melee attack and increases your movement, making it easy to chase down other players. And it comes with a phone you can use to mark nearby enemies. It even plays the voice lines from the movie. What's your favorite scary movie? Mine's Scary Godmother. It had a funny skeleton in it. Okay, Ghostface, it's nice catching up with you. Thank you. I get really lonely sometimes. People don't talk to me that much. Alright, it's whatever, man. I'll call you again next year. Bye. Anyways, Shock and Awesome was a really enjoyable season, and it only got better the more time went on. It felt like every problem I had with the chapter slowly got addressed as the season progressed, with medallions being removed and nicer POIs being added. I already enjoyed Shock and Awesome, and then the Halloween stuff just made me enjoy it even more. I just wish the bugs actually did anything. Overall, it was a really good season to end the chapter. But we're not done quite just yet. There was one last event to cap off this season. A portal to the spirit realm shows up and we see the tentacle beast is still a problem. Jones uses the rift device to try to fight back, only angering the beast, and... Why are we Simpsons now? Shenanigans ensue until Hope and Jonesy accidentally combine the Fortnite Island with Springfield, resulting in an entire season based off of The Simpsons. I'm singing the song to avoid content ID. I'm gonna be honest with you, I was going to skip this season. I'm sorry to disappoint, but I needed a break. Even though I really enjoyed Shock and Awesome, I was starting to feel a little burnt out on Fortnite around this point. So I thought I would take it easy and skip over the Simpsons mini-season. It seemed like a prime opportunity to take a break. I mean, Galactic Battle, the last mini-season, really wasn't that good, and I thought this was going to be the same. Oh, how wrong I was. From what I saw online, Fortnite pulled out all the stops, putting a lot of care into this season, catching a lot of people by surprise, including myself. And after seeing so much excitement for this season online, I caved and hopped on and played a few matches. The keyword being a few. I did not play enough to get a full in-depth opinion, but I can still share some general thoughts. The weapon rotation was fine, nothing too offensive. The weapons they brought back were all really nice, and we even got a few new goofy ones, like the Cobalt Slingshot and the 5-gun. See, there can be a balance between silly items and fair gameplay. It just took them a while to remember that. The map had a gargantuan amount of care put into recreating Springfield, making the whole place cel-shaded and crammed with details. However, they may have focused a little too much on details. The map is ridiculously open, especially in Zero build, and with how small the map is with very few mobility items, you can get screwed over so easily. The map looks incredible, but in terms of gameplay, it's like I'm playing on the Chapter 1 map again, and that's not a compliment. Lastly, they did a lot to keep the season interesting with actual weekly updates and changes, going as far as to release weekly Simpsons shorts about the main story. That's adorable, but also a little sad because this is the most story we got in the whole chapter and it's all focused on Homer. But like whatever, beggars can't be choosers. And man, am I begging. Overall, from what little I played, it was a really neat mini-season. Even though I'm not much of a Simpsons fan, I wish I would have played more. But eventually, all things come to an end. We are finally heading to the end of Chapter 6 for real this time, with the 0-hour event, the moment the whole chapter's been building up to. As I said before, I'm a stickler when it comes to live events. They were really good at providing hype moments in aura, but lacking in terms of gameplay. But that being said, I was legitimately excited for this event. It seemed like this event was going to be different from all the other ones I've experienced, and sure enough, it was. And I can now safely say that I finally understand the appeal of live events. This event was a celebration of everything that happened over the past year, giving every collab a spotlight in the fight against the Dark Presence. Whether it was in front and center or tucked away in a corner, everyone showed up in some shape or form, and all of them are welcome. And unlike the Death Star sabotage, the gameplay of this event was cool as hell! Actually participating in the fight alongside these collabs just gave it a big, grandiose feel to everything. Now, don't get it twisted, all of this is still a scripted sequence. All of the damage you do is meaningless, and it's just there to give the illusion of gameplay. Nothing you do here actually matters. However, that's just me nitpicking, because the gameplay moments were still incredibly hype. The feeling of running towards the demon at the very start was incredibly powerful, and riding on the back of the Kill Bill lady's bike felt awesome, and these only added to the experience of the whole battle. This is what advertisements in Fortnite should be, a fun and exciting implementation of different IPs, and not being an elaborate billboard. I still think live events have their problems, and not all of them are worth the hype, but this one was, for sure. And to top it all off, they gave Chapter 6 such nice closure. After defeating the Dark Presence, we see the whole island turn back to normal before being sucked away. It's such a sweet little detail that makes everything come together. It's a shame that Chapter 5 never got anything like that. As far as we know, Mephisto still rules over that island. But this place, this island, it gets to live in peace as we move on to our next destination. And with that, Fortnite Chapter 6 is officially over. Man, that was something, wasn't it? It was a good chapter, but there was just a lot of rough patches for me. The two things that matter to me the most are the weapon rotation and the map layout. I do make a fuss about story and battle pass characters, and they are important to me, but they don't make or break a season. Chapter 4 was one of my favorite chapters, and that had almost no story to it at all, but it made up for it by having a super fun map and incredible item rotation. And at the start of Chapter 6, I thought this was going to be the same. An incredibly designed map and an almost perfect loot pool got me excited for what's to come. But as the seasons went on, a lot of that excitement started to go away. The map slowly got worse as new locations failed to live up to the standard that Season 1 set, and the weapon rotation always had some kind of BS gimmick that you either had to use or fight someone who was using it. The way I feel about Chapter 6 as a whole is very similar to the Star Wars season. It had a really good start and a really good end, but the middle just didn't hit as hard. They were good seasons that had their moments, but they were weighed down by issues that I just couldn't look past. I wouldn't call any of these seasons bad, they just rubbed me the wrong way. All I can really do now is wait for the next chapter to start and hope it doesn't fall into the same traps that Chapter 6 did. And considering the fact that Shock and Awesome addressed a lot of issues I had, I'm legitimately excited to see what happens next. Whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether there's a stupid fucking pickle in it, I know one thing's for sure. The next chapter will be Fortnite. It's a terrible way to end the video, but I'm doing it anyway.